Get me a hot young Tony Shalhoub. Previously on the pre-commentary track.
It's your baby.
On the next episode of the pre-commentary track.
No, it wasn't your baby.
Well, wait, yeah, actually, that's good. That's
on
a
this
good
episode,
thing.
we'll eat the baby.
We'll eat the baby.
On the season finale of the pre-commentary track.
All the babies are yours, Richard.
Podcast Gold. Welcome to the show. I am that Chris Gore. This is PodCRASH. This is the show where every week you get to hear me as a guest on a different podcast. It gives you the opportunity to discover new podcasts. It gives me a chance to talk about a variety of topics. This week, I'm crashing a show called the Pre-Commentary Track. And I'm actually I'm in Santa Monica, California right now at the inaugural LA Podcast Festival. I'm standing here with my producer, Sean Merrick, who's actually a volunteer at the festival. Yes. And we have seen, it's basically, this is one of the few places. What do you think?
Well, I could best describe this as kind of like an orgy of podcasting.
When you say it, I think it would sound creepier if I said it. I think it would sound creepier if I said it.
Usually those words are much creepier from me. But no, basically because it's like everybody's doing podcasts somewhere. Like we just recorded an episode of Podcast Squared earlier today. I mean, people are all sorts of different shows.
With Andrew Johnstone does a podcast called Podcast Squared that reviews other podcasts.
Yes.
It's actually another, like PodCRASH is another way to discover other shows in the podcast realm. But
right.
what's cool about this is the first event, and it's kind of for people who are, it's twofold. It's for people who are fans of podcasts, because last night I saw TJ Miller's show, Cashing In with TJ Miller. Let's see, Greg Proops is here, Greg Fitzsimmons, Fitz Dog.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, if you're in the world of podcasts, this is a place where you can feel like a rock star.
Yeah, no, this is like the creme de la creme of comedy.
Creme de la creme? Did you say creme or creme?
Creme de la creme of podcasting.
No, but it's cool because it's like events where you're like seeing podcasts recorded live. In addition, I did a panel this morning talking about using social media to promote your podcast, where I learned a lot. A woman from MailChimp, which is a newsletter service, was on that panel with me.
Right.
And I'm going to be we're going to start a newsletter for PodCRASH, so you can find out about the live events.
Also, gentleman from SideshowNetwork.tv was there.
Sideshow Network, yes. And
they provided some knowledge. So.
Yeah, they mainly work with comedians.
Yeah.
And then Graham Elwood was on the panel, who was hilarious. And Jackie Cation, who does the show Dork Forest, which I hope to be on Dork Forest at some point.
Yeah.
I really would love to be on Dork Forest.
Yeah, she was fantastic.
Yeah, first of all, just based on the success of this, because the panels have been packed, let's see how good my pop filter is. The panels have been packed.
It sounds good.
And it's a way for, if you were considering starting a podcast, this is something you'd like to come to, or if you're simply a fan of podcasts.
Or if you're, most importantly, I think if you are a podcast and you want to like network and like get yourself in with other people that are like-minded and that are, and we've maybe even more experienced at it than you are. Like if you're a fledgling podcast and you're like, okay, I want to get the word out about my show, but I also want to just learn about the process of other people doing stuff. You're pretty much right in the middle of it. And I mean, like for instance, your panel this week, this earlier today this morning was a great example of that. And there's a tech panel tomorrow that I believe you might be participating in.
Yeah, I'm in the tech panel at noon.
So there's all sorts of like knowledge being dropped, and because it's like the Wild West, so people are just getting used to this medium, even though it's been around for a long while. People are getting used to it; they're understanding it, and this right here is a great opportunity for everybody to do that and see great shows take place.
Yeah, so I mean, it's fun in the sense that you get to see these shows, but then the panels are just sort of a business element of it. And as someone who I don't know how to network, I just like to hang out with people, and generally I do like to drink as well. So I guess that's how I network.
Yeah, no, I don't drink anymore, but I tried.
When did this happen? You don't drink anymore?
When it started hurting me.
Oh well, you know what? It's going to be way.
It's like okay. You know how in the Return of the Living Dead, when they don't eat brains, the zombies, they say it hurts.
Right.
That's how it is when I drink alcohol. It hurts.
Well, can I just say it's going to be way cheaper for you and I to hang out now? drinks because
we'll go to Robik's juice bar.
We'll be buying the drinks. I'll buy cranberry juice.
Neat.
Cranberry juice, sans vodka. But I really am amazed. It's this festival was put together by Chris Mancini and Graham Elwood, who do the Comedy Film Nerds podcast.
Well, they're part of it, yeah. And then also Dave Anthony of Walking the Room podcast, and Andy Wood, who also he's a big driving force behind this. He's the guy that's he did the Bridgetown Comedy Festival, and they all got together and they put together this festival, and it's. I mean, there's people in the hallways here. Just we got. I could see comics on comics. The podcast.
I can see.
There's physical manifestation.
There's Graham Elwood. There's Graham Elwood about we were just talking about you.
Why are you walking around with a stick with a fuzzy thing on the end of it?
Oh, because normally when I'm doing that I have a safe word, but in this case I'm recording a podcast. So we did this panel this morning. Mm-hmm. It went great. What did you think? You were funny. Well, you were really funny. You pulled out the funny. But it was really informative, too.
Well, it was informative for me. Like, again,
that's how I felt.
The thing that you and Jackie were talking about of cutting together a little 2-minute audio clip with a slideshow that you put on YouTube to help drive people to your podcast. I was like, that's a really good idea. Like, I learned a lot. And again, like I said, that kid that stood up and did the music podcast that asked some of the questions and some of the stuff he was doing. Like, that's what I just love. Someone is out there doing something that you could learn from.
Right.
Yeah. Someone is promoting their show in a way that you haven't
yet. I thought
yet.
It was great that he's just like, I like this blog, but you guys don't have a representation of like a podcast. I'll do it for you. And it's like the initiative. Like, that's pretty smart. You like something, I want to help you guys out. Here's how I can.
It all has to, and as we talked about in the panel, that all comes from passion. That guy has a passion for music. That guy wanted to talk about it more. We all have a passion for whatever, comedy, film, and that's what drives it.
And I love what you said about just the hating on the chore that comes with social media. It can be, Jackie Cation was saying, it's like 3 hours a day. I think I probably spend more, which is why I tried to quit Twitter. It lasted about 3 days. But yeah, like, and it's like the balance of, because I feel like what you said, I totally bonded with. You were saying about like, you're promoting stuff. It's like you need to put funny in, but I don't really come up with a funny tweet enough to balance the plugs.
Well, yeah, I mean, but again, that's specific to me being a professional comic. But right, I mean, you know what I mean? Like that. But I think whatever your thing is that you're on Twitter for, you have to make sure you're doing that thing. Like Roger Ebert needs to make sure he's doing movie reviews and whatever. I mean, now he's become very political. But I mean, if that's why people are following him, he needs to keep doing that. You know, does that make sense? Like you have to stick with. If you're a ball player on Twitter, you need to be talking about your team and the playoffs and the blah blah blah.
But if you talk about, let's say you're a ball player and you talk about politics, and if you step outside of the realm of what people expect, you can get shit for that.
You could, and you gotta set up, as Jackie said, it was very smart. Set up like she has a specific forum that's like, this is where I do my politics. Mm-hmm. This is where I just do jokey stuff, right. And then you can kind of like I've done that. I forgot to mention it. Like I have a blog, and I've only really used it for when I go overseas into the war zones, and people have been like, more of this blog, because that blog gets really serious and like, because it's intense shit, and there's some funny stuff in there, but it's more of a personal format for me, you know.
I know, I've seen your documentary Afghanistan, and I have to say it's funny. What's shocking about it is how you see how it affects you. You see how it affects your family when you're getting ready to go to your comedy overseas for the troops, and you see how emotional you are, and you're scared. And I'm sitting there, I'm scared. I don't have the balls to do what you did. I mean, it's amazing to see how much you opened up in that documentary. And it's filmed in like, I mean, I don't know how you got some of the access that you did, but it's amazing. So that does really affect people. So great job on the documentary. Great job on the documentary, but also just like seeing how I'm glad that you've continued that project beyond the documentary. You know, you're continuing it via the form of the blog.
Well, thanks, man. I mean, that's, again, and to answer your question from a filmmaking standpoint, I took a little Sony Handycam.
That's what I thought.
That was it. And I just walked around and I'd be like, hey, can I film this? And they're like, okay. You know, like wow. The Department of Defense grants you access to go into a war zone. So once that happens,
right,
you can. And everyone's like, oh, you'll never get clearance on that. You get. I'm an American citizen, taxpayer. I get clearance to the military unless there's a specific room with maps or something like that, and they say you can't shoot that. That's the thing. And they tell the soldiers, if anyone comes up to you with a camera or recording device, you have the right to say no. But once you agree to talk,
Right.
so,
Wow.
and if you say something stupid in uniform, we're going to fucking fry your ass. But, like, people thought, I was going to have I talked to a Major Houlihan, I'm not making that up, at Central Command.
How are boobs?
Yeah, really sweet. He had delicious boobs. And he told me all that. He goes, you can use, if we let you come, and we're giving you escort through a war zone, and you're rolling your camera, that footage is yours. You can do it. You don't need clearances. That we own all the soldiers. Mm-hmm. So the only right they have is to say, I don't want to be on camera. But if they start talking, you don't need a signature, nothing.
Wow.
Yeah, nobody knows that.
Wow. Well, the one thing I think that might increase interest in both of our respective Twitter followings is sexy pictures. Why do we not do more sexy pictures, Graham Elwood?
I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to need to do a lot of waxing first, but...
Well, can I say there's a really sexy photo of the two of us at this recent Comic-Con.
That's on my Facebook profile page.
That is your... Wait, it's like, that's your Facebook profile picture is me in the Slave Leia outfit with you?
Yes. Yes, I've had that up for a month.
Well, then, you know what? I take that as a compliment. I take that as a compliment, Graham. But, I mean, you guys did such a great job putting this whole thing together. I mean, there's definitely, you're already talking about year 2, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, from the first thing, everyone was like, oh, next year. Because everyone's like, man, what's been sort of flattering is everyone's like, man, for a first-year fest, you guys really... And that's because Chris Mancini and I and Dave and David, and also Andy Wood has run his own festival. But Chris and I have been to so many film festivals. We know what works and what doesn't.
Yes, and it totally shows in the way that you put this together. It feels like a year 5 event. But also, what's amazing about this is it's not just it's sort of twofold. It's for fans, right, and people who listen to podcasts. I just love podcasts. I like this one. I like that one. I like Doug Benson. I like Todd Glass. I like Sam Tripoli. I like all of them. Hey,
Jonathan London just walked up.
Jonathan London from Comics on Comics.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey, I think I'm going to do your show, but I might be a little late.
I'd love to have you. That's
all
fine.
right, I'm going to jump on.
right.
After I do this. I'm recording some raps for.
Cool. Can we get Graham Elwood instead?
You know what, Graham Elwood. Yeah, I would. In the hierarchy, I would say I would want Graham Elwood. No, he's busy on my show right now. He's busy on my show.
Enjoy.
Okay. I'm totally.
Escape.net.
That was Jonathan London, folks.
Give a plug.
Yeah, but yeah, it's listeners sort of coming together also with content creators, and I think that's really, there's so much for content creators. Like you mentioned, being on the panel, I learned stuff on the panel as well. I mean, I was asking questions legitimately because I wanted to know the answers to those questions, and really I was taking notes the whole time. So, the great thing is too, just for anyone listening to this, all of those panels are going to be archived they are going to go up on iTunes, right? As podcasts.
Yeah, the LA Podcast Festival is going to put up all of the panels and the Best of the Fest as individual podcasts that you can listen to from the festival.
And it'll just be what, LA Podfest or LA Podcast Festival? Yeah. What is you'll figure it out.
Well, our website is lapodfest.com, right. So you can go there. When they're up, they'll be up there.
It's so much cooler when you say it, lapodfest.com. I mean, thank you for putting this event together. We're recording our raps for an episode right here, and
freestyle rapping or
no raps, the little rapping, wraparounds. I should say wraparounds.
Oh, like a bacon around.
Like a bacon wrap thing.
LA Podcast Festival, Podcast Festival, Podcast Comedy LA merch festival, and stand up.
Graham, love what you do. It's fantastic. That was Graham Elwood at the LA Podfest.
This is the beauty of the Podfest, is that we're just here, and these are it's a Podfest nirvana. I mean, you had Graham just walking by, Jonathan London. These are all people. I mean, if you come here next year, these people may be here, most likely will be here, and it'll be just so much fun for you. If you're a podcast fan, you're just immersed in the swim of podcasts.
And speaking of podcasts,
I was going to say the word podcast again because we're saying the word podcast so freaking much.
Podcast, yeah. So there's got to be another name for it. Podcast, my digital
eventually.
A better nickname.
Like a shorthand term, like a potty.
I don't think potty. Yeah, I'm putting potty in my ears. That's not gonna. That sounds like something that would happen in Germany. All right, let's get to this week's crash.
Yes.
I was on a show called the Pre-Commentary Track. Now, the reason I wanted to have you on the wraparounds, recording the wraparounds for this episode of PodCRASH, is specifically because this involves you. I was supposed to be on the show, then I had to cancel a couple times, and then these guys talk shit about me on the show. Let's listen to what these guys had to say.
All right, I'm going to move on to Chris Gore.
Do it.
Because we've talked about Chris Gore on our program, and I didn't mention it on the last show because I had been I got an email from Chris Gore's producer Sean, and he's saying that eventually, because he had listened to the episode where he's like he sent me an email. He was like, I listened to the episode where you talked about Chris Gore not being on the show, and I was like, dude, I'm like, I hope that didn't come up as me, because he's like, I hope you guys don't think we were like intentionally blowing you off. I was like, no, I thought we were even joking about it, just being like, I'm sure they're fucking busy, No, I think it's funny because that's the type of like create the. I just think it was amusing to create like a fake controversy when there's not one there, because I'm not like
Keep it going.
Gets his attention.
Yes, exactly.
It's a
Because I'm not a
fun
person that would hold
attention
grudge, and I totally understand like people being busy, so I'm like, whatever. But I still think it's funny. It amuses me.
Basically, scheduling snafu, but they were pissed off. I mean, is it justified? Like, first of all, also, I don't care what they want to say about me on their podcast. They can say whatever they want. So, who cares? It's fine. It's fine with me. I don't take it personally. But now we finally got to meet.
Yeah, and then so you go on, and then they're like just kind of.
What was interesting was they wanted me to not just be on the show. They wanted me to read. They wanted me the guy. Well, first of all, the show it's hosted by Richard Martinez and Mike Jimenez, and they do the show Pre-Commentary Track. They pretty much talk about whatever. But they wanted me to read this script of theirs called Jesus Christ Kill Fuck or something. Jesus
Christ. Oh, God, I forgot it.
So I recorded the Pre-Commentary Track actually at Interact DVD in Pasadena, which is one of the last used DVD places in Southern California that I know about. You can buy, sell used DVDs. They also rent DVDs. I thought, what better place to record the Pre-Commentary Track than at Interact in Pasadena, 350 South Lake Avenue. Their phone number is 626-578-7282. That's from memory, folks. Hopefully that's correct. Anyways, so Dave Sparks, who runs the store, I suddenly get a text from him saying, what's going on? These guys show up, Richard and Mike, along with this giant load of equipment, like a mixing board.
And I just wanted to just preface, I mean, these guys are very, Mike, Richard was very cooperative, getting this all set up, but it was just like, he said, well, we got a huge setup of like audio, and I was like, well, we don't have a ton of time.
I mean, you and I are recording this here at LA Podfest, and I am holding a mic stick that's got the Zoom H4n. We're just like sitting here. It's nothing. It's something you can fit this in your back pocket.
Yeah, no, I mean, we were just hoping that we just come in, tape, and it would be easy, and then this seemed pretty elaborate.
They brought a desktop computer with like a 32-channel mixing board and all this horribly outdated equipment. I have a photo of it that I will be tweeting out or putting on the PodCRASH Facebook page to check that out. It was, oh my God. It was Dave was like, you got to get over here and talk to these guys. So this was the context under which this was recorded. I had to listen, to read the first 10 pages of the script. I've already been bashed by these guys on their show because they were offended that I canceled, and I totally understand that. I will take that criticism. But let's see how it's definitely next to the Tower of Sour might be one of the most awkward, uncomfortable podcasts I've ever appeared on. Thanks again, Sean.
Oh, you're welcome. I did my best.
All right, so let's take a listen. Here it is, the Pre-Commentary Track.
The first time I heard about Chris Gore is I came across I think it was a third edition of the Ultimate Film Festival Survival Guide, which is
a great book, by the way.
Brilliant.
It's an awesome book.
It's really awesome. And I mentioned that before on the show, but I don't think, unless you look at it, I don't think people understand like how awesome it is, because it only tells you, like, you have interviews with some filmmakers who've gone through it, which is cool, and then, which is a cool little bonus, and you have all the information you can get, and, survival tips, like, how to make it through, and like, I think one of my favorite things is like how to crash parties,
Yes, people do like the party crashing tips, but it was intended to be like, because having gone through film school and have dropped out of film school,
yeah.
I really felt that those books just gave you the sort of go for your dream thing, which I think is like, it's the worst thing you can tell anyone, whether it's someone like that's in a band or someone who's trying to be an actor, comedian, or a filmmaker. Yeah, you should just go for your dream.
Right.
Go for your dream, which to me is like telling someone like, hey, here, just take this rope. take this rope and then take all the rope you need and then hang yourself.
Right.
And so what I intended to do with the book was really to give people real world advice on here's what it's like out there. Here's people who've made it. And then if you read the trades or you read the stories of how people became successful, like Quentin Tarantino wrote a bunch of scripts, worked at a video store. Suddenly Harvey Keitel likes one of the scripts. They make Reservoir Dogs. The end, happy end. No, that's not that guy went through a lot of struggle.
Yeah.
I mean, that that guy paid his dues, Quentin Tarantino,
Yeah.
I mean, now I would say he's on top of the world and well respected, but there are no overnight successes at all. So I wanted to spell out, the struggles. And then in addition, some of the other, those sections of the book, the test cases, which you say you really like, I included people who failed.
Right.
Because I think what's really cool is you see like people who didn't succeed, or made a film that flopped and then had to kind of wrestle with that. I think it's almost like the second film is more important than the first because, hey, you're the flavor of the month. You're someone who's, a sort of artistic discovery and new. And that's exciting on the festival circuit. But then you make your second film has really got to...
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you don't have more than one film in you, you're not going to have a career. You're going to have that was a good film you made.
Yeah.
Kind of career. So I tried to really give here's all aspects: people who've made it, people who failed. Here's documentary filmmakers, narrative filmmakers. Here's genre filmmakers. Horror, sci-fi, fantasy. I try to include a variety of filmmakers and types. And then in addition, give real advice. If you want publicity, hire a publicist and make sure you do your research. Try to ask the right questions so you know why you're doing it. Or here's how to do the PR yourself. Here's DIY. Here's how to write a press release. Here's why you're doing it. Here's a way. So that's what I tried to do with that book, and that's how I approach any problem. Because my reason for dropping out of film school was I was buying books, reading books, and then regurgitating the contents to a professor, and I thought to myself, I can pretty much buy books and read them myself.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to buy books and read them, and then I'm going to use that info. I don't think that works if you're going into any sort of medical or scientific field or anything that requires skill. But if it's a profession that you're able to read a book and then get some real world experience, I think that's the way to go. So I've always looked at anything that I've done. Most of the things I've done, I've never done before, and so I try to just figure out how to do it, like even writing a book. Well, how do you write a book? I can tell you how to write a book in about a minute.
Yeah. How?
Simple.
Go.
How do you write a book?
You've written a script, so
Yeah.
that's impressive. It's easy. Here's how I write a book, and this tends to work for people. First of all, you need a really good, catchy title.
Right.
Come up with that. Most book titles are 1.2 words, so 2-word titles tend to be the best. Because they're memorable. A memorable title. Secondly, spend 6 months outlining the book. So you spend 6 months sort of writing a phrase or a sentence or a topic heading that outlines about every 250 to 500 word section.
Right.
And I'll spend 6 months outlining the book, and then I'll spend about 1 month writing the book. And how I write the book is I write between 1,000 and 3,000 words a day. The average book is about 60,000 words, 50 to 60,000 words. So if you do that for a month, 5 days a week, you'll end up with 60,000 words. I'm a big fan of going through and checking word count. I love that. And previous editions of the Film Festival Guide, because of all the data that's in there, it's 175,000 words.
Oh, geez.
So, but the average book is about 60,000. So just write 2,000 words a day for a month. You'll have 60,000 words. You'll have a book. But having spent those 6 months thinking about it means that now it's just get it out of my head because I've spent all that time thinking.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That's kind of my writing process too, is to think before you actually go out and do it. But
or as I like to call it, procrastinate. Procrastinate is kind of part of the process.
You got me.
We're masters of that.
Yeah, it's part of the writing process. I think is procrastinating, because when you're procrastinating, you're actually thinking about it. You're like, I can't really figure out this one problem. I'm going to go alphabetize my DVDs.
Yeah.
And then in the act of doing all these things that have nothing,
laugh at me.
all these things that have nothing to do with the thing you're trying to do, which is write a script or write a book or whatever, you're actually subconsciously working on it. Or at least that's my justification when I'm procrastinating. I mean, it's weird. We're running into like the superstars of podcasting. Everywhere you turn, there's some person that I've seen in the top 10 on iTunes.
Yeah, no, it's totally surreal, and it's so much fun because just everybody, it's like everybody is here. Everybody that's doing these big shows are here, and you're just running into these people, and it's fun. And it's just good for podcasters to get involved.
And I'm speaking as someone who is not at the top 10 of of iTunes, but hovering sort of at the bottom 100. I'm at the bottom 100. All right, first of all, before we get to that, let's get some plugs in. I'm going to be doing the Comedy or Death show. That's this Thursday, October 18th, 10 p.m. at the Universal Bar and Grill, 4093 Lancashire Boulevard. That's this Thursday. And then also upcoming this Saturday, it's Saturday, October 20th, I am doing PodCRASH Live, and I'm also doing Comic Book Live at the inaugural San Diego Comic Fest. It's from the organizers of Comic-Con, and they've decided they want to do a retro convention. It's basically a convention that's all about comic books. So I'm going to be doing PodCRASH Live there on October 20th at noon. You can just Google San Diego Comic Fest. And those are the only plugs I want to put in. Also, a little plug for our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/PodCRASH.
PodCRASH.net.
And PodCRASH.net, you'll get more information. Okay, enough with the plugs. Let's get on with the show. It is. I mean, it really is. I mean, like the film business, the movie business is really, it's really a losing proposition to begin with. It really is like a portfolio piece at this stage.
Yeah, but I think...
Sorry, did I talk too much?
No, that's awesome. It's gold. It's gold, Chris.
Podcast gold.
At what point did... it seemed like... I mean, I don't know because I'm a little bit younger than you, but it's like, at what point did... it seems like there's so many more film festivals now than there were in like the 90s and stuff, you know?
Well, yeah, no, there's definitely been an explosion, but I feel like, though, that like film festivals are kind of retrenching because sponsorships have dried up. It's not as easy to put on a film. First of all, it's expensive to put on a film festival, and now you have the internet. I mean, do you want to take your short film and enter it in a film festival and wait? Or do you want to throw it up on the internet, potentially get 1 million views?
Yeah. I think there's something to be said for that, but I mean, there's still like...
And if you monetize it even better, 1 million views on YouTube translates to $3,000 in ad revenue.
Mm-hmm.
We've had the 5-second film guys on the show, and
are you familiar with 5-second films?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And how many hits do they get per week?
I think, oh man, they said they don't get a lot, but I think they said like...
But the sheer amount of videos they put out.
Each video, I think they said, is like in the 80 to 100,000 range, you know, but they're putting out 5 a week.
The funny thing is, you sit there and watch a 30-second ad to watch a 5-second video. It's pretty funny.
Oh, I love the internet.
Yeah, those guys, yeah, exactly. But no, those guys are geniuses.
But they let you skip some of that now, so I like that.
Yeah, but I think, but there's still got to be something to said for seeing your movie on a big screen.
Yeah,
you know?
no, there definitely is, because you can feel the vibe in the room. You really learn a lot when you, just as someone who has had a movie at a film festival, a couple movies, you learn so much by watching an audience watch your movie. I really watch the audience watch the movie,
right?
And I think that is as good as a script reading, in that sense. Plus, you get people that will review it or not review it. You get to see. It's sort of like what it is. This guy, Michael Blyden, actually, who made a great film that was on the festival circuit called Melvin Goes to Dinner, said that he felt that film festivals are kind of like grad school. You could go to grad school for film, or you could take the money you would have spent on grad school and you can make a feature movie, take it on the festival circuit for a year and learn more than you would had you gone to grad school.
Yeah, well, I think now, and I think I said before, it's like if DVD commentaries existed for every movie since film started, like film school would be irrelevant. You could just listen to people talk about how they actually...
Yeah, but I mean, there's no real like path to... If you look at take all the filmmakers who have careers, meaning they make a living making movies.
Right.
Take all of those people and do a study.
Yeah.
And you see how many went to film school, you'll find that it's not 50% and probably less than 30%.
Yeah.
It's people who fell into it, didn't intend to be a screenwriter or a director. It's people who went to school for philosophy, like Woody Allen, and then decided to be a filmmaker. It's someone who came at it from a completely different arena and then fell into it. And then there's the people who did go to film school and then your George Lucases and your Steven Spielbergs who went to film school and then became filmmakers. But it's
they just happen to get big at it.
Well,
and that's why everyone thinks, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they worked their way up, but
right, those
their
guys,
names got bigger than...
To me, those guys are incredible businessmen.
Right.
Spielberg and Lucas. And I think that if actually they never made a movie and just accomplished things that they did from a business standpoint, whether it be technology they both developed and whatnot, they would still be incredibly successful.
They both could have retired in the 80s.
Right.
And would still
could
be
have.
fairly rich now.
I mean, there's just like so many just software pieces that Lucas has developed and just methods of doing things, whether it be marketing, whatnot. So just forget the movies. Just look at the other achievements are vast. So those two guys really changed the business.
No, for sure. And I think, but yeah, like you said, most directors that make it didn't seem to go to film school, and I think it's important, they studied other things to become a filmmaker.
I agree. I think it's you bring something else to it, because pretty much everything you need to know about filmmaking you can read in a book, and or you can hire someone who knows more than you to do that job.
Yeah.
Which is actually more the case in Hollywood. You hire someone else to do it.
Yeah.
Who knows what they're doing. That happens quite a bit. Especially there's a great, not to plug another podcast, but there's this podcast called Proudly Resents, which has an amazing interview with the guy who directed The Room. Not Tommy Wiseau, the real guy who directed The Room.
Oh.
And it's an amazing interview, and he just talks a lot about this. Like, the guy knew what he was doing, knew what he was getting into with Tommy Wiseau's kind of nuts. And that's just a really fascinating interview. You should listen to that.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
After you finish listening to this entire podcast.
Yeah.
To the end, and then rating it on iTunes.
Yeah.
If you can figure out how to rate it, you're better than we are.
But what do you think? Do you think you were saying festivals are kind of like, at least are sort of?
I feel like the festivals are, there's more and more of them that are going away, unfortunately. But it really is because sponsorship is dried up. So, and filmmakers need to. So basically, they're confronted with a choice. Do I take my film and just self-distribute it, put it online? Do I take it to a festival? Especially if you're a short filmmaker. You really have to think about, do I want to go on the festival circuit?
Right.
A lot of festivals will allow you to do both now, which is good.
What do you mean?
They'll allow you to enter your movie in the festival even if it is online.
Oh, okay.
Festivals are loose. Nice. They've loosened up on that rule.
Nice.
But for a feature film, it really needs to be a premiere. It needs to be screened there.
Are you?
That was another part of official rejection. That was a big part of that. They won't take you unless it's a premiere.
Yeah, there was one festival that's just like, oh, we only want the premiere. Like, if you premiere here, we're not going to take your film. And it's just
right.
Like, wow.
No, that's true.
And how long has that been a practice for?
That's been around from the beginning, really, because have a premiere is like it's a big thing. It's like the movie's never been seen before.
Right. That's the. People.
But I mean, literally, there are just so many. There are just so many small films that, of course, you're never going to seen it before.
Yeah.
But you go to a film festival to see movies.
Played on the other side of the country. It's like, who cares?
But you can also you can consider it a regional premiere. Like it's like the Los Angeles premiere.
Yeah.
Might have played in Burbank already.
Yeah.
Look, and there's Greg Fitzsimmons. Fitzdog he's walking along. Just. A big fan of your show.
Oh, thank
sir.
you.
Not only your show, but also I listen to you on other shows.
Oh, that's great.
I've heard you on Stern. I can't believe you got him to do the introduction to your book.
I did the foreword to my book after a lot of belly aching and hemming and hawing and hemming.
And I've listened to you. You've been on Rogan. Like when I will search for your name in iTunes just to see what you're doing. I'm not stalking you just because.
No, I love it. I love it.
And I've not gotten your book, I have to say. But did you do an audio version of the book?
I did.
I will listen to the audio. I buy audio versions because I like when comedians do audio versions of their. It's just.
I'm listening to Al Franken right now, the old one, the Rush Limbaugh's a Big Fat Idiot. I mean, I just love it. I go to bed at night listening to comedy podcasts, and if it's somebody in their own voice, it's just perfect.
Yeah, that's the way that, like Steve Martin's book, Born on the Stage.
Yeah.
Brilliant, where he talks about his whole history, how he used to do magic at Disneyland. It's so incredible.
Yeah.
And you're a guy that I feel like we have the same kind of temper sometimes.
Really?
You
got the fatigues on. I can see you're a fighter.
A little bit of I feel like I still today, no matter how I'm 47 years old, and I still feel like I practice playground justice.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Vigilante, like you're a superhero.
In a way, well, just it's like I am good to everyone. You cross me a little bit, and it's gonna come out. The Hulk will come out.
Yeah.
And I
it's
hear
a
that
switch. You can't turn it off once you go white. It just the rage is there, and you can't, and at the end of it, you crash down, and you just go, "Why did I do that?" But I never feel bad about it. I just feel like, God, I wish I could stop it.
Right.
you know.
Well, you've dealt with that. I mean, you talked about dealing with that, dealing with anger
therapy.
issues.
Yeah, a lot of therapy.
Yeah.
Just went yesterday.
Yeah. And how was it? How was the $150? I've been in therapy myself.
$210.
$210? You pay $210?
Well, my insurance does. Thanks, Obama.
I pay $150, but I just.
That's why you still have more rage than I do.
You think so?
That $60 is a huge difference.
The extra,
and then you got a tipper.
You tip your therapist?
If it was a good session, I give her a tip.
Really?
No.
I've never.
No.
I could see doing that though.
That would be funny. Make them work harder.
Well, I did a podcast. I'm sure you're familiar with Paul Gilmartin's Mental Illness.
Naturally.
I wanted to do that to save myself some money on therapy because having listened to that show, listen to people I love on that show, it is a session. It's like a double session.
Yeah.
Have you done that show yet?
No.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with it.
It takes you deep.
It really takes you deep. It's like, it's a little like Maron's show, but more into the psychology in terms of like, what you were like as a child. And he really goes much deeper, makes it less about himself.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's tough when you go on a podcast like that. You really have to give over to it.
Yeah.
If you get somebody who resists, like I guess Paul Reiser went on Maron's, and there was a little bit of resistance. And I have to listen to it, but I heard he wasn't. He's Paul Reiser. He's a storyteller. He doesn't want to talk about, how his career has gone, or, I think that coming off the huge success he had, that would be me. I wouldn't be I wouldn't be auditioning for more shit. I'd be like, I got my money, I got my family. I'm gonna chill a little bit. And I don't know what happened. I got to listen to it, but I think it was kind of awkward and good.
I really want to listen to it. Paul Reiser, my one small story about him is I was about to be seated at Kate Manalini's in Beverly Hills, just about to be taken. He walked in right in front of me. They took him. So I did this move that I've done at fancy restaurants in Los Angeles where I just lay on the ground as if I've fainted. And you get service very quickly that way.
You got to really commit, though, don't you?
Well, I lay actually on the couldn't believe Paul Reiser. And this was not when he was doing that Mad show, the romantic sitcom that I never.
He had done Diner. He was.
Yeah, did Diner. He was in Aliens, which was great. But so I'm like, come on, this guy, come on. You were about to seat me.
What had you done?
I'd done nothing at that point. I was just
floor.
I was doing an underground fanzine called Film Threat. That was my thing at the time.
This sounds like the opposite of a Rage episode. You went really, possum. You went possum on it.
I went just as I was trying to be funny. I was trying to be funny.
Did it work?
I got seated. So yeah, but it was
like have a seat. You have sugar. You got low blood sugar.
Help me out. I think I got a free drink.
I would try that, except it's humiliating.
Well, some comedy can be humiliating sometimes.
Yes.
We all tell stories that are. Look, listen to your stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm dying to read your book. Listen to your book.
Listen to it. Yeah.
I'm well listened.
Dear Mrs. Fitzsimmons, you can get it on audible.com. Click through fitzdog.com to get it. It's a good listen.
I love that you threw in the plugs.
Got to do it.
You're amazing. Anyways, big fan.
Thank you so
Greg,
much.
Great to run into you. I'd love to do your show someday.
Yeah. Just email me at Fitzdog Radio.
Previously on the pre-commentary track.
Richard, it's your baby.
It's my baby.
On the next episode of the pre-commentary track.
No, it wasn't your baby.
Well, wait, yeah, actually, that's good. That's
on this episode, we'll eat the baby.
We'll eat the baby.
On the season finale of the pre-commentary track.
All the babies are yours, Richard.
So, whoever's idea it was, I sent you a script and you read some of it. So
I sent you I sent you. One of the reasons I wanted to be on this podcast is because we came up with this idea that you have a screenplay that you've written, which, first of all, bravo for finishing a screenplay. A lot of people say they're going to write one. They don't. You did, and you finished it.
Right.
I've read the first 10 pages, and the title of the script is...
Jesus Christ Killfuck.
Jesus Christ Killfuck is the title of the script. Something you probably could not put on a marquee at the AMC 16 in Burbank.
I believe we'd mark it as JCKF.
Yeah, but
JCKF.
Which means people might try and go and find fried chicken.
Right. But... Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. We have children in the store, so JCKF is going to be the title.
Yeah.
So I read the first 10 pages of your script.
You got to tell me if it's bad.
immediately based on the title was ready to hate it and dismiss it. Just completely. Because like you're just trying to be incendiary, and you know that like from a marketing standpoint, that presents a challenge. I mean, there's a documentary that uses the F word, but it's like you can't. Just titling it that already puts it like that's you're going to get people's attention, but not in a good way. So I would definitely recommend a title change. It's almost like you go the other direction, which is make it like the flowery, like make it just sound something like
Jesus Christ Kitten Flower.
Right, exactly. Well, there is that like Abraham Lincoln vampire killer.
Yeah.
And there's all these other. I mean, there's the FDR. Franklin Delano Roosevelt FDR badass is one like. That's a script, or that's an indie movie actually. So I think there's maybe a different way to get attention with it that's not going to be as provocative. And also, at the end of the day, the title of a movie really doesn't matter so much. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, it matters only that it gets read and it's easy to remember, but it doesn't matter what it is because someone will ascribe a meaning to the name or a title of anything. So a title isn't important. So what I'm saying is you shouldn't be precious about the title. Come up with a title that will get it read, but maybe not be as incendiary. And you can even go the other direction. You can make it sound like it's something cute because it definitely isn't cute. It's about a guy. At least from what I can tell at the beginning, because I only read the first 11 pages.
Okay.
It's about a guy who seems to dress like Jesus Christ and goes around actually murdering people with a girl who seems to be an angel named Gabriella, who answers to God, who is a woman that they communicate with via kind of a galactic Skype. Am I right? And is that a fair description?
I mean...
Of the first 10 pages?
The thing is this. The first 11 pages... Okay, now... I don't know what happens.
Okay.
So I am only going based on my impression. What's interesting about it is there is a reveal where he takes off a wig. So I go, okay, maybe it's not him. Okay. You know what I mean? So I thought that was kind of cool, like because at first you describe it as like there's Jesus.
Right.
And you just say that that's him.
Yeah.
You don't. You say that it's him. You don't say that it's not him. And then he takes off the wig a few pages later, and then. I thought I'm giving you just. I really wish I'd read more. And see, this is a testament to the script.
Okay.
I wanted to read more. I really wanted to read more. And so that is a good thing. And here's what worked for me about it is that you didn't reveal everything. And the whole thing is this applies to a movie or a script. Do I want to know what happens next?
Right.
Am I interested enough to know what happens next? And frankly, I was. Which was surprising because the first page or two, I'm like, oh, this is garbage. This is the worst. Right. The only really fair criticism I could give is that I feel like some of the action could be just cut down. You could probably cut all of the action in it just in half. You just need less words. That's it. The dialogue was pretty tight, frankly. So that was impressive. And there was a clever joke that I remember where Jesus is at a laptop and there's a line like where it looks like he lost a document and it's like Jesus saves, but apparently Jesus doesn't back up. So it was funny because he just at a laptop and it's basically they're bringing down the apocalypse God has decided they're going to destroy the world, but it's like Jesus is saying like I can't just do this by myself. It's going to take too long. I mean, it's just like sheer numbers. I'm not going to be able to do this.
Right.
So, but you don't really know what's happening. Is this guy mentally ill? I mean, what's going on? And so what I liked was it created enough mystery in the first 10 pages. I wanted to know what's going to happen next. So, good job. I fully expected this to be train wreck. This is great. We're networking. This is my producer Sean Merrick.
And it's the Crash Cast.
PodCRASH. Yeah. So
PodCRASH. But email us and we'll have you on.
Definitely cool. And I'm going to cut out this part where we were doing that. So great. Thanks. Take care. Awesome. Great to run into you. Is it about to start?
Yeah, we're about to go. So.
Okay. Cool. Let me wrap this up real quick.
How do you feel about movies that are just so bad that they get a cult following?
I love those.
Like a Manos.
I love those. Like a Manos. I love good bad movies. It's part of why I shop here at Interact. Like I like to discover something like, oh, you've never heard of Manos? Well, and have you ever heard of this one?
Right.
You ever heard of Misty Monday?
Have you ever heard of Ultra Christ?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, to me, I live for those kind of movies. They're like, and there is though, like there's definitely a fine line between a bad movie, which is, let's say an Adam Sandler movie.
Right.
You can just sort of name the last five, or a good bad movie, which is entertaining.
Right. Like The Room.
Like The Room is a good bad movie. That's like I'm enjoying this because it's just so bizarre.
Yeah.
A bad movie will shut down. A bad movie will shut down your brain, but a really bad movie somehow still sparks something. You'll still keep thinking.
It's either someone that is delusional, like a Tommy Wiseau, that like isn't aware they're making a bad movie, which is like or like the guy who did Birdemic, just completely delusional, like I'm making a great film, whereas it's a piece of crap, or it's someone who is perfectly aware that they're making something that's awful, which also can backfire, because I feel like if it's too forced, like we're going to make a bad movie, then it's like, come on, it just seems forced and it's overacted and everything done. That doesn't work for me either. So there's definitely like a fine line there. And Manos fits into that. I mean, Ultra Christ fits into that. I think, the guy Jordan Hoffman who made it, like, definitely knew what he was doing when he made that movie. But yeah, no, like I love, and I feel like you've written one. You've written a potentially good bad movie.
I think so too.
Will it be a good bad movie or a bad movie? We'll never know.
Well, hopefully we will know someday. But
Podcast gold.
Yeah. So, what else? This is where we always talk. What have you been up to, sir?
Oh Lord, what have I been up to? I've been up to nothing.
I'd be really.
What have you been up to? Well, okay.
Can wait a sec? Can I guess what you've been up to?
Go.
Nothing.
Mostly nothing. Actually, I've been
so close.
I almost had it.
It's like, well, we obviously the normal day job. No, I've been.
What's your normal day job?
I wait tables.
Where?
Chili's.
Chili's. Which one?
Oh, Jesus.
Do you want to say on the podcast?
Chili's in Carson.
Chili's in Carson. All right, cool.
But,
nice.
Right outside of Long Beach, because I live in Long Beach.
So I could be at a Chili's, and my waiter is doing a podcast.
You could very well be.
Oh my God! You're keeping this in the podcast.
Waitercast.
Yeah, Waitercast.
Waitercast.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's my day job. No, but I've been in writing purgatory. No, actually, I started.
Dude, you finished a script, and you finished 5 scripts, and to me, that's ahead of most people. You should give yourself a little bit more credit.
What I started doing, actually,
5 scripts.
What I started doing, I'm starting on the 5th, so I'm working on the 5th.
Okay, I like 11 pages of one of your scripts. That's more than. I mean, that's.
Well, even I think I started writing, but then I started blogging on our website about like every day I'd write, and then I'd not even necessarily talk about writing, just kind of give some commentary on, the process.
I'm thinking about an idea I have for a script about a guy who works at a Chili's, who's a waiter during the day, but then he also does a podcast and writes scripts. What do you think of my idea for my script?
It'll never fly.
It really depends.
It will be kicked out of every
It's really
theater.
not believable.
It's all going to come down to casting, actually.
Right.
Just don't get Adam Sandler to
if
play
we can
him.
get a Matthew McConaughey in your role.
I'm thinking the guy from
he wears
Monk.
flip-flops.
Thinking the guy from Monk would be the guy that would
Tony
play.
Shalhoub.
Yeah, Tony Shalhoub would be a perfect guy.
That would be a good Richard Martinez. Yeah.
Yeah, he would be awesome.
I would love for him to play me. But so I've been writing, and then towards the end of the day, after my brain's totally melted from even writing like 2 pages, I'm just like, I can't get through this. But I really like the idea I'm coming up with. I'm really excited about it. It's just I'll be sitting in my apartment like.
Can you give us any
idea?
But
wait a sec. Here's the big question. You like your idea. Will other people like your idea?
Good question.
We'll find out.
We'll find out
on the next episode of the pre-commentary track.
Well, yeah,
Richard, there are no babies.
Well, yeah. By the time we record the next one, it'll probably be almost done. That script.
What's the title of the movie?
Light of the Night. So far, I'm going to change that title, but it's already changed. It used to be called something different, but I'm not allowed to use that.
I hate that title.
Yeah, but
I think you can. I think there's a better one.
There is definitely a better one. Well, when it comes time, I'll be like, Chris Gore, what should I call this movie? And that'll be my
Jesus
go-to.
Christ, kill.
No, it's a story. It's kind of. Oh, man, I don't want to pigeonhole it yet. We'll talk about it more next time. But
don't worry. If you're being pigeonholed, that would be a good thing.
That would be a good thing.
It'd be a good thing if you finally found yourself like, I'm being pigeonholed. Everybody thinks I'm like, get me a hot young Tony Shalhoub.
Right.
That's what I need for.
That sounds like euphemism for something.
Yeah.
Where is that screenwriter that looks like Monk? I need him to work on my next thing.
That'd be awesome.
By the way, you should just title it Pigeonholed.
Pigeonholed, yeah, exactly. But
I'm sure that's a fetish somewhere.
The Pigeonhole.
On the internet.
It's a club somewhere.
Can I stop your rambling for a second?
I just
want to say one thing. Podcast Gold. This is Podcast Gold.
So
I feel like that could be like that's your little bridging element is this is podcast gold.
I'm going to use that drop for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And this is podcast gold. You've just heard podcast gold.
Oh, man.
If you keep listening, you might hear some podcast gold.
It's like Field of Dreams, but
But without pictures.
if you podcast.
All right,
So
so
we'll
when you're
So I've been
on
writing.
when you're on OkCupid and you describe yourself as
Oh,
a
boy.
younger Tony Shalhoub, how do chicks react to that?
I need to go change my OkCupid profile right now.
Your OkCupid
Yeah.
profile that says, "Look, I can get you free chilies, definitely, and I might have you read one of my scripts. And have you heard my podcast?"
And by the way, I met Chris Gore once.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm gonna put on
That's
there.
not going to help you. It's not going to help. Trust it doesn't help me, and I'm me. All right.
Damn.
Yeah.
So what has Chris Gore been up to?
Doing my podcast, PodCRASH.
I'm very sorry.
Right.
Thank you for that. Working on a couple web series at the moment, and then just continuing with my job at G4 on Attack of the Show every week on DVD Tuesday. So there's that.
There's that. See,
Yeah,
again,
no, I
thanks.
feel extremely lucky because I've been there for 7 years, going on 8 years.
Jesus.
Wow.
I know.
That's awesome.
That's like it's one of the jobs I've had the longest next to doing Film Threat, which I did for 25 years.
Wow. Have you also have you been in any film festivals recently?
No, I sort of cut myself off from doing film festivals for a bit. You know, I'm really focusing on my own projects at the moment. You know, I was the guy who would cover movies and cover other people's stuff, and now I'm, at a place in my career where I think that I want to be making things more than covering things.
Right.
So I'm like you, although I'm like you in the sense that, you work at Chili's and you're aspiring and doing your projects. I work at G4. That's my Chili's. And then I work there, and then in my off time, I'm trying to sell projects. So you and I are a lot alike, except we don't bear a physical resemblance. I'm more of a fuckable Tom Bergeron, and you're more of a younger Tony Shalhoub, if I could just be honest for a second. Does that make sense?
That's what we strive for, honestly.
I'd say fuckable Tom Bergeron, or maybe a straight Anderson Cooper. I'd say that would be the other
There you
one
go.
that you could call me, because the silver hair definitely kind of puts me in a certain category. Or I am an Anthony Bourdain, but a much pickier eater. Well, that's it for this week's show. I really want to thank Richard Martinez and Mike Jimenez from the pre-commentary track for lugging all their equipment out to Pasadena, California to interact, to record their podcast with me. You can find their podcast on iTunes, also the pct.libsyn.com, learntoswimproductions.com, and follow them on Twitter at LTS_productions. Also, really want to thank everybody from the Los Angeles Podcast Festival. Such an amazing event at the Hotel Delfina in Santa Monica. I'm already looking forward to year 2. The final night party was amazing. Really enjoyed it. I want to thank Chris Mancini, Graham Elwood, who I know personally, for putting it together, Graham for talking to me on the show, and Greg Fitzsimmons for just sort of dropping in and saying hi. You want more information on PodCRASH? Follow at PodCRASH Show. Follow me at that Chris Gore. Like us on Facebook.com/PodCRASH, where you'll find pictures of Richard and Mike's giant setup of their podcast, it's like they brought a recording studio to Pasadena, right in the middle of a DVD store. Really odd. And one last thing to say, as I like to say every time, let's get on it!
Damn it. Shit. Looking for me?
Hey, if you're still listening to this, you're probably a lot like me. You're the kind of person that sneaks beers into parties that have cash bars. I can't stand that. Why would I want to pay $6 for a cheap domestic beer when I can have a couple in my pocket or in my backpack, and I can just very nonchalantly pull out that beer and crack it open and then save myself the money. It's a tough economy out there, folks. And if you're the kind of person that goes to something like a podcast festival with a cash bar and you've snuck in beers, hey, you're my kind of person. I like you. For that, you shall be rewarded. If you send a self-addressed stamped envelope to PodCRASH with that Chris Gore, 5042 Wilshire Boulevard, PMB 1500, Los Angeles, California 90036, I will send that self-addressed envelope back to you with a surprise. And the first 5 people to reply to @PodCRASH Show and say, let's get out of here, win a free DVD. I'll follow you from the @PodCRASH Show Twitter account. We'll DM and I'll get your address and then pop you a DVD in the mail. And one final thing to play us out. This is the theme song produced by myself, sung by Chris Mancini for the Los Angeles Podcast Festival. Enjoy this tune. Later.
LA Podcast Festival. LA Podcast Festival. Podcast Festival. Podcast Comedy LA merch festival. And stand up. LA Podcast Festival. Podcast Festival. Podcast Comedy LA merch festival. And stand up. LA Podcast Festival. Podcast Festival. Podcast Comedy LA merch festival. And stand up. LA Podcast Festival. LA Podcast Festival. Podcast Festival. Podcast Comedy LA merch festival. And stand up.